All right, we're now into week 3 of the semester, and now we're going to be talking about levels of measurement. You guys have talked about that before, I'm sure. Essentially, how to think about measuring your variables. In other words, how do you take the constructs or the concepts that you have in your mind right now and convert them into variables that are in fact measured, and so that process is called operationalizing, right? But before we get there, I want to go ahead and wrap up our discussion from last week when we talked about hypotheses and variables. And of course, variables are those components that make up hypotheses. And so let's first wrap up that discussion in the first part of this lecture. Okay. See here, just making sure you guys can see my screen. So I was suggesting before that causality is a very high standard. In fact, it's kind of the gold standard for the research that people undertake. It's the highest standard to meet in research. It's very seldom achieved, that is causal or explanatory research. And there are, of course, there are criteria that need to be met, which are often not met, even with the most sophisticated statistical tools. And so, in practice, we very seldom are successful in engaging in causal research, although the intent of the research might in fact be causal. But here are the 3 criteria for establishing causality in any study. And so first, you have to establish some type of correlation between your main variables of interest. So we were talking before about independent variables and dependent variables. Let's say you're talking about inequality and health as your independent and dependent variables respectively. Now, the first thing you need to do is to establish a statistical relationship between those 2 variables. And when you have 2 variables, that's when you have a correlation between variables, right? Essentially, when you say that there's a statistical association or correlation, that's the first criterion. And then, it would make sense for us that if you're trying to assert causality, that one thing is in fact causing the other, that there should be some time element to it, or a correct time order. That is, your purported or your alleged cause should precede your purported effect in time, right? So the IV, I note here, must precede the DV. The independent variable must precede the dependent variable in time, okay? And so that means you need to have a longitudinal study to be able to achieve this criterion. So these 2 criteria are not so bad, the first 2. It's the third of these that's very tricky as a practical matter. So, if you're making a causal claim, okay, if you're making a causal claim, you have to be able to rule out all the other possible factors that might be intertwined with your purported cause that you might be confusing for being the main causal factor, if that makes sense. So this is the notion of spuriousness. Okay, essentially you're saying there's lots of different reasons why some outcome occurs. So if we're talking about inequality or health, you can think about all the different things that might have an impact on health. Okay, it could be how I eat, it could be my genetics, it could be all sorts of things. But if you're claiming that inequality causes some level of health, you have to make sure that it's not intertwined with some other factor. Okay, and when it is, more technically speaking, when there's a third factor that's related to both your independent variable and your dependent variable, we call that a spurious relationship. So this is So I'm just defining what a spurious relationship is. Right? Any third, fourth, fifth variable, any variable that's out there that you may not have considered, right? That's related to both your independent and dependent variables. Here's a silly example. Okay, you have a group of students, and they're studying drunkenness. Okay, so the topic of this study is around drunkenness. You can see here, the various experiments that they're undertaking, right? So they drink vodka and water. Okay, vodka and water. They get drunk. So, just insert your drink of choice. They drink scotch and water. They get drunk. They drink bourbon. Some people really like bourbon. Right? They drink bourbon and water. They get drunk. Whiskey, gin, so on and so forth. And then these students think to themselves, well, if I'm looking for something that's common among all the different experiments, we drink water in every single experiment. Therefore, water must be the cause of the drunkenness. Okay, that's silly, right? That's super silly. Water doesn't cause drunkenness. We all know that. But that's the type of claim that we make in our research when you don't consider third, fourth, fifth explanations that might be intertwined, that might be the real factor for why your outcome may be occurring. In this case, drunkenness. Okay, so a silly example, but spuriousness happens all the time, so we have to be careful. We were talking about those third, fourth, fifth, yada yada. Those explanations, those are what we're referring to as extraneous variables. Okay, outside factors that may have an impact on the dependent variable or the outcome of interest. That's just kind of floating out there, and so what you're trying to do, I'm noting here, on the bottom of the footnote, what you're trying to do in your research is trying to, decrease the influence of all those extraneous factors, or that is, incorporate as many possible explanations into your study as possible. Okay, and so then of course that begs the question: well, how do we do that? How do we control for extraneous factors, right? Here's another example, right? Let's say your study is about juvenile crime. Okay, you've got a study here about juvenile crime, and you want to make an assertion about the connection between race, ethnicity on the one hand, and involvement in the juvenile justice system, right? Think about all those different things aside from race, ethnicity that might be related to why someone gets involved in juvenile crime or in the juvenile justice system, right? You might be thinking poverty. You might be thinking about, well, what sort of parenting do they have? What is their neighborhood like? What are their friends like? I mean, there's so many different things. And so those outside factors, those third, fourth, fifth, sixth, etc., those factors are in fact extraneous factors. And so we want to be able to build those extraneous factors into our model, as shown here in this next diagram here. Yep, so you've got possible extraneous variables or factors, right? All those things we're noting: gender, poverty, where people live, right? All those things that might have an impact. Those are extraneous, right? If they're not included as part of your study. Now, when they do become a part of your study, when they're incorporated into your study, we call them then control variables. Okay. And so you want to control for these extraneous factors because that makes a stronger case for you that your main independent variable is in fact, does in fact have the causal impact that you're looking for. Okay. There are different ways to control. You can do it statistically. I know here are three different ways, but you can do it statistically, essentially. Okay. Those of you who've gone to do more research, right? We're only going to get into bivariate relationships, relationships between two variables. In this case, we're looking at race, ethnicity on the one hand as an independent variable, and then involvement in juvenile crime as the outcome of interest, right? We're going to look at bivariate relationships like this for the most part. So we're going to look at, we're going to use correlational analysis for the most part. But if you ever engage in statistical analysis, if you go on to do more research, you might be considering some statistical models where you incorporate third factors, fourth factors into your statistical models. That's technically speaking, that's called regression techniques, right? And so we don't get to regression next semester either, but that's what you would be doing to control for third, fourth, fifth factors. Okay. There are other ways. Luckily for us, though, there are other ways to control for those extraneous factors. Okay, and you don't have to do it statistically necessarily. You could stratify. Quite possibly, right? And by stratification, I'm saying, take some variable, some third factor that you think might be related, right? In this case, I'm saying, well, if I'm looking at the association between race, ethnicity, and juvenile crime, then, if you think gender matters, if you think, that relationship is different for boys and girls, then you stratify. You incorporate your third variable, in this case, gender, and then you would study the relationship between race, ethnicity, and juvenile crime separately for boys. You might have one sample of boys and then one sample of girls, and you would look for that relationship separately for under each group. Okay, or you just limit the study to one gender altogether. Right, that's another way to control. These are sort of manual controls. Right, your study is just about boys, or your study is just about girls. So in either of those cases, you've controlled for gender. All right, I'm going to stop there. That's the first part. We're going to get into conceptualizing and, more importantly, operationalizing in the second part of this lecture.